Uh, Concept work for a new mainline Dragon Quest game began after development wrapped up on Dragon Quest VIII, with Hori and the rest of the series staff deciding what platform the next mainline entry should be developed for. Hori wanting to reach as wide an audience as possible. Hino later noted that he suggested the DS as a platform from an earlier stage, inspired by its widespread commercial success. Level 5 was already working with the DS developing Professor Layton and the Curious Village. Man, I don't see how you make that connection. After some hesitation about having a mainline entry on a portable platform, Hori was convinced. Production began in 2005 with Hori keeping its production as secret as possible. During production, it went by the codename Zenlon, named by Ichimura during a conversation in a store called Zenlon Tokyo. Okay. So, what are your thoughts on it being on the DS versus, well, let's see, 2005? They probably could have started working it on the Wii slash maybe the PS3. I guess would have been the other, or maybe a very late PS GameCube PS2 game. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the different options of a console they could have released this for?
Okay, clearly the game suffers in a visual aspect. You can see it almost looks worse than N64 3D graphics. I think it does. Like I could probably safely say that.
Yeah.
This is not the first Dragon Quest game that came out on DS. Dragon Quest 4 came out on DS in Japan in 2007. And then 5, and these I guess these are like ports,
Remakes.
remakes in a sense because there are some different elements. But they're not that different. I guess from NES graphics, yeah. So they are remade. The game uses the DS functionality at that time in ways that are conceived as ingenious.
Mhm.
That hadn't been meddled with before and influence the future of like DS and 3DS hardware. So I think that it made sense at the time. Playing it in hindsight in 2022, when all DS functionality is basically null unless you do local Wi-Fi or local connectivity, does it make sense? Probably not. Would it have made more sense to put it on a PSP? If you were going for a single player experience, then yes, probably. What do you think?
Um, I well, there's an irony to it, but I will say this: I think Dragon Quest does its best work on the big screen. It just is such a bombastic, grand experience that I would have honestly have preferred that they made it for the PS3. I don't know that that was even possible at the time at 2005, or maybe they should have just waited a little bit. Or even the Wii. The Wii had a huge audience too. I think it could have done more work there. We saw Xenoblade Chronicles there, and you could have made the graphics. Obviously, that goes without saying that the graphics would have been nicer. Um, y- you know, it, we'll get to some of the DS stuff about what makes that so great. But to me, conceptually, that I don't see Dragon Quest as a multiplayer game. Now, there's a big caveat on that because there's a game that's called Dragon Quest X that exists that is literally a multiplayer game. We can't play it not multiplayer, at least not yet. Soon you will be. But the and I say that ironically about wanting it to be on the big screen because I've played most of them on the small screen. Like I've played the
Yes. Yeah.
like the originals on the Switch. You got the DS versions. Um, 8 originally I played on the big screen, and then I played it fully on the 3DS. And then the Switch game, obviously it's a Switch, you can play small or big. But I don't know. I think the DS just was too little personally for me to try to handle a Dragon Quest game. But I see what they were doing with the multiplayer that probably couldn't have been done on any other console at the time. So
I don't know. I think the DS was just an RPG powerhouse. I think people liked that you could just take it wherever and you could just boot it up whenever. And I don't know. I mean, this is more of a thing for Japan at the time.
yeah,
So I mean, they're following the Japanese market. What was the alternative? Make it on the Wii, PS3.
I would have been into the Wii. I know PS3 might be a stretch. I don't even know if that would be possible at the time, but I would have taken the Wii.
It's quite a confession from a non-Wii fan.
Yeah. I mean, I probably wouldn't have played it anyway until later, until like on the Wii U. But either way, I would have tried that. Horley later described the platform as a great choice for Dragon Quest due to its portability and multiplayer options. He called the Wi-Fi functionality of the console the final deciding factor. He briefly considered making it a Gaiden with the next mainline entry coming later, but ultimately chose to commit to making a mainline entry for the DS. While Hori anticipated a quick development due to working on a portable console, he later admitted it was taking far longer than he anticipated. A challenge for the team was working within the DS hardware. As with each previous Dragon Quest, they had worked with increasing hardware specs from console to console. We've talked about this a little bit. Um, do you think the DS was up to the task? I know you call it an RPG powerhouse, but do you think maybe they pushed it too hard?
Well, you played Dragon Quest Monsters Joker.
Yeah.
I feel like that game thrives a little better than this one as a single player experience. And that's a Gaiden. In this sense, they define Gaiden as a spin-off.
Okay.
Gaiden literally means foreigner, but like, in video game context, I understand. Is it up to the task of making an RPG? It's almost like a demake. And
Okay, you have a
kind
game
of
that hasn't
bad ways.
Yeah.
Of a game that hasn't happened, right? But yeah, it's like it's Dragon Quest 8 reduced
Yeah.
sequel. Like
I
reduced
100% agree.
visuals, reduced storyline, new hardware capabilities, but I don't know. There's some appeal to that because what like they started program for this thing at the time that the DS had come out. Professor Layton, like I guess maybe that was like a launch or early DS title. There's something interesting there about like and maybe it was they bit off more than they could chew. It took 4 years for it to come out, 3-4 years. But numbers speak for its success.
Yeah. Certainly the DS had the player base. There were just I could see the marketing reason for doing it. There were just so many people with the DS. It was one of the hottest selling consoles maybe ever. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I just know that it was freaking
Yeah,
huge.
this is common knowledge. We
Yeah.
just know this. Yeah.
So it makes sense. I think in the greedy piece part of me is like I was hoping for a bigger game, like more of a fulfilling Dragon Quest experience as opposed to what we got, and we'll explain some of that later. Um,
There is a question about is this more of a spin-off than it is a mainline game? But we can get to that.
okay,
Sure.
which is a good question because it's certainly, yeah,
A question that is fitting.
yeah.